We're in the middle of a Metroidvania renaissance and I'm really annoyed about it. Ever since Ori and the Blind Forest and Hollow Knight released in the mid-2010s, I can't keep up. This year alone, I've played, reviewed, and written guides for Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown and Animal Well, and I have 9 souls installed and ready to go. This deluge of incredible Metroidvania games threatens to drown out smaller titles like Bo, Path of the Teal Lotus, which I've spent about 14 hours playing for review over at PCGamesN. Last week a friend of mine showed me a game called Momodora Moonlit Farewell, and despite some ridiculously proportioned waifus, it looks really good, and I've never even heard of the series. It would have been a damn shame if I missed the Teal Lotus in the same way, but I probably would have if I wasn't reviewing it. Here's a quote from my review. While Bo, Path of the Teal Lotus plays it too safe with its gameplay, its engrossing setting and large cast of charming characters help it stand apart in the ever-crowded Metroidvania genre. In other words, mechanically, the Teal Lotus is nothing new, so I probably would have skipped it. However, after playing, I now know it does enough to set itself apart. The Teal Lotus makes a strong first impression with its vivid hand-drawn art style and setting inspired by Japanese folklore. I mean, just look at this adorable animated cinematic I'm ruining by talking over it. Right after the cinematic, you awaken as the titular Bo, an adorable little spirit born from both flora and fauna. Staying true to Metroidvania tradition, there's an area right off the first room you cannot reach. All Bo can do is travel to the right, sitting down at a tea house or two to save before coming upon this lovable asshole named Asahi. After sharing some tea with Asahi, Bo unlocks the ability to use a staff, which allows him to whack yokai and bounce off objects. Asahi then tasks you with collecting a handful of bamboo. Easy enough, right? Not so fast. Heading back the way you came, a giant skeleton appears far in the background near an imperial palace with a beam of light shooting out of it. It's a foreboding tease of what's to come. That's a problem for later though, as you can now reach that inaccessible area off the first room. Bamboo in hand, Asahi calls you an obedient dull puppy and then pieces out, leaving behind a teapot you can use to heal on the fly. It's quite the good opening, and the Teal Lotus doesn't let off the brakes when it comes to introducing charming new characters. The next screen over, you meet a two-headed bird that breaks the fourth wall. Not long after, an Hashihime, a narcissistic demon woman, tries to drown you as you race across a sprawling bridge that serves as a skill check before the game truly begins. If you're anything like me, you'll want to keep playing to meet more denizens of this vivid world, like this fox wedding party I helped out deep within a forest, or these bickering monkey siblings beneath an icy mountain. Pretty much every citizen of the gorgeous Sakura City has something cute to say too. This is where I found the Teal Lotus shone compared to its contemporaries. I'd go so far to say it rivals Ori and the Blind Forest for endearing characters you grow attached to. On the other hand, the Teal Lotus plays it too safe when it comes to the most important part of any Metroidvania: traversal mechanics. Metroidvania games are all about how you explore their sprawling 2D labyrinths, unlocking new abilities as you go until you're backtracking across the map doing 360 ollie kickflips like you're Tony Hawk. The Teal Lotus is no different, starting with only a simple jump, a half dozen hours in and you'll find yourself whipping across the map, but in that similarity lies the problem. It's incredibly difficult to get excited about a dash or glide power-up given how many times I've used them before. There's a total of 8 traversal abilities to unlock, but none of them are unique to the Teal Lotus. One reason why Animal Well is my game of the year so far is because it surprised me with every single one of its traversal and puzzle solving options. Like the first ability you unlock is a frisbee. I was like, cool, I can throw it and hit a switch. But then I realized you can ride the damn thing. The yo-yo can wind through crevices to hit switches, but I could also use it to break stalagmites and lure chinchillas along. But there's none of that creativity in the Teal Lotus. While the platforming is tight, I came away disappointed every time I unlocked extra invulnerability frames on Bo's dash or the ability to cling to walls. The closest the Teal Lotus gets to a unique traversal method is how Bo can stay airborne as long as there's something to whack with the staff, thereby resetting the cute little hero's jump and dash abilities. You even attack faster while airborne, creating an often exhilarating "the floor is lava" metagame. There's even a few absurd platforming challenges to truly push this airborne system to the limits, one of which I haven't cleared yet because it's just so sadistic. You have to talk to this giant volcano-looking bro to obtain a fragile item before taking it through an absolute gauntlet of enemies and falling icicles and disappearing platforms and rotating icy wheels of death without getting hit a single time. Another platforming challenge I proudly cleared featured 5 stages of wooden beetles I had to whack without touching the ground. My success here does an amazing job of showing how slick Bo's abilities come together, even if they're a little rote. I might make it look easy, but it took me about 45 minutes of sweaty, white-knuckle effort to complete. And when I did, I startled my dog as I leapt right out of my chair, and then I made my wife come watch the recorded footage of my successful run, to which she promptly told me I was wasting her time. Anyway, all these acrobatics affect the combat too, which doesn't feature any sort of complicated combo system or charge attacks and what have you. Instead, there's 32 amulets called Omamori to find and equip, which alter Bo's abilities, along with 8 Daruma that grant special skills. The more you attack in the air, the quicker the boiling tea gauge on the left-hand side of the screen builds, which further increases the power of these Daruma. My favorite two were Pyro-kun, which allowed me to spit out a steady stream of fire, and a bomb cutely named Kaboom Maru that set off an extremely potent cluster bomb attack when the tea gauge was boiling. Altogether, there's just enough combat variety to stave off any sense of dullness before rolling credits. Likewise, the boss battles were definitely not dull, skillfully straddling the line between frustratingly difficult and enjoyably tricky, requiring me to make smart use of every tool in Bo's toolkit. I needed no more than a few tries to memorize the correct rhythm to leap over deadly feathers of a Tengu Wario duo, yet I still got that dopamine rush you get from overcoming an adrenaline-inducing challenge. In other words, this isn't Shadow of the Erd Tree, which I'm still licking my wounds from. For example, take this boss called Kitsura. At first I used the Pyro-kun Daruma to fry her face during her first phase. During her second, when she took to the air, it took me a few tries to realize I could launch off these red lanterns on the right side to reach her hitbox rather safely. Going through the middle was a surefire way to get wrecked by some ancient Japanese energy balls. I also equipped an Omamori amulet that allowed me to sip tea while moving, which is how Bo heals, thus completely avoiding getting hit while I topped myself up in style for another high-flying attempt. Then I got to pet Kitsura, which was super cute. No hard feelings. Tying the Teal Lotus together is some great Japanese-inspired music full of traditional instruments like shakuhachi and shamisen that ramp up to a crescendo during boss battles. Take a brief listen. The music also does a great job of setting each of the 8 biomes apart, though it can't make up for some hit-and-miss environmental design. The Forest of Crimson Bamboo, for example, had me in awe, yet the next area was just some boring, nondescript caves. Later, Bo and I walked through gorgeous rolling tea fields enchanted with rainbows before entering an uninspired forest that I couldn't wait to move on from. This was made all the more tragic because the tea fields were only a couple screens long with no enemies in sight, while the forest and its sub-area outranked all the others in size. That said, I didn't mind scouring every centimeter of even the non-enticing areas for hidden kodama and omamori on my way to 100% completing the game, which I haven't yet done. Being a Kickstarter-backed indie title, you better believe the developers added an incredibly esoteric post-game quest I've yet to figure out. Because of this and the aforementioned platforming challenge, I'm stalled at about 90%. I mean, I also got paid to find all the kodama and omamori locations for guides, but still, I enjoyed every minute of it. I gave the Teal Lotus an 8 out of 10 in my review, but given the stricter guidelines at PCGamesN, my editor bumped it down to a 7, which happens. Most reviews, including the mostly positive Steam reviews, are in the same bamboo forest as me, especially given it costs only 20 American dollars. Some reviews I've seen gave it a 6 or even 5 out of 10, most citing frustrations with steep platforming challenges. Maybe those reviewers aren't as masochistic as I am or as invested in the genre. Maybe you aren't either. Something to consider. Either way, I'm a firm believer that Bo Path of the Teal Lotus gets by on the charm of its cast, engrossing setting, and deliciously satisfying boss fights. Despite a plethora of other Metroidvania games I haven't yet played and totally would if I could freeze time or I don't know, never sleep again, the lack of unique traversal mechanics and a couple weak environments barely diluted my enjoyment. With all that said, I wholeheartedly recommend this endearing little game for those that appreciate their Metroids with their Vanias like me. Oh hey, my name is Lowell, and I'm a freelance game critic and guide writer. This is my first public YouTube video, and at the moment only my wife and a couple of friends have given me pity likes and subs. I want to make videos like this once a week on the games I play early for my job. So if you enjoyed listening to me ramble, please consider liking and subscribing yourself. Thank you!